All right, the South African Cultural, Religious and Linguistics Rights Commission is pleading with worshippers to refrain from conducting rituals at river streams during this time due to increased water levels and the risk of drowning. The Easter long weekend is traditionally associated with baptisms and cleansing rituals. However, persistent heavy rains across many parts of the country has led to emergency services warning the public to stay away from riverbanks. But for more on this, we are joined by Reverend Thokwane Dithuge and NSRI Communications Manager Andrew Ingram. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. I think, Andrew, I want to start with you, and then we'll get the Reverend to help us, with the why and certainly what it is that the message is going to be for religious organizations. But from NSRI's point of view, the state of rivers at the moment in various parts of the country, places that you feel really need to be avoided, if at all, by religious organizations wanting to have those baptisms?
Yeah, good afternoon. I wouldn't want to pick on individual rivers, other than perhaps to say the Yukskay has a reputation for coming up very quickly, flash flooding or a problem. But I think that applies to all rivers around the country. So I think that the most important thing for people to bear in mind now is that weather forecasts are incredibly good. And I think that people who are planning ceremonies like this at this time of the year, it's incredibly important. But I would really encourage people who lead these ceremonies to watch the weather forecasts and really take note of it. Understand that flash flooding can happen very quickly, and there could be an absolute disaster if people are not watching the weather forecasts and go ahead despite the possibility of flash flooding. Yeah.
Reverend, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We really do appreciate your time. There is, of course, the question around, as religious organizations, when we are looking at having baptisms in rivers and water forms that are, of course, natural, there's the idea of what it is that really is looked for by the pastors, by the priests, right? Does it have to be a moving water form?
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. I think I need to personally highlight it. It is very important for the pastors to be cautious because baptism is a big celebration in the church, because it's one of the sacraments that the church celebrates to welcome new members into the life of the church. So baptism is a sign of welcoming into the life of the church. It should not be ending people's lives. So I want to believe there is a need for not only pastors, but pastors and those who are servicing in the emergency services to have a plan and demarcate these areas where it's safe to baptize. But it should not be a place of death when we baptize, but it should be a place of renewal and a new life.
I imagine, Reverend, that when the leader of a church decides that they will have their congregants come together and there will be this baptism, that there certainly isn't the intention to see an end to life. So I wonder then if religious leaders do have the information that's necessary as to, where the NSRI, for instance, is able to give you information as to, all right, well, this area is going to be particularly problematic and this is where you have an alternative. Is that information readily available, Reverend?
No, I wouldn't want to blame anyone, but I'll say as a pastors, when we prepare for such big services, we don't just prepare from the liturgy part. We go to the places, we look where we can go. Is it safe, is not safe? And maybe I'll say they can communicate with those guys, especially those who believe in a river baptism, to communicate with the emergencies guys and ask them to escort them to those, because even those who do the river baptisms, they can't even swim when they get there. So it's very important that everyone become cautious and we all work together. The government and the churches, they must work together. You know what is the problem? The problem is that there is so much mushrooming of the churches that those churches cannot be counted. You cannot know who's the priest, who's the prophet, who's what. Everyone wears a blue-green jacket and went to the river and regard themselves as the minister, and they baptized. That's a very problematic. But I'll say my advice to everyone is to go and check the place first. when you see this spot is safe to baptize, before in the morning you go, you come and you check again before the congregants come, because these rivers overflood overnight. So going there and checking, you'll apply the safety measures of them. You are right. They don't plan to they don't plan to take people there to die, but they take them there even if they see the river is overflowing. That's my problem.
Andrew, perhaps you can help us with some tips there for religious leaders, and I'm talking about where there is I suppose, a comfort point where someone believes that this particular riverbank is safe for us to conduct a baptism. Just the safety sort of tips that we do need to keep top of mind after we've said, all right, we think we can use this spot, but what do we still need to do to protect ourselves and the congregants?
So I think that the Reverend's advice there was on the nail. I think that it's so important that leaders of religious groups do proper preparation, and obviously that includes their ceremony. But I think as important to that is to visit the place that you are going to go to for the baptism. And what the NSRI does with all of our activities is we always have a safety officer. And that safety officer has no other job other than to make sure that everything is safe and watch safety all the time. So if you have somebody doing a baptism ceremony and you have congregants, those people will be involved in the religious moment, which is incredibly important. But there should be somebody else who has been to the place beforehand, has been into the water and who's checked how deep it is and understands what it looks like. And then throughout that ceremony, that person's only job is to make sure that nothing changes, everything is the same. So if you go down to a river, for example, and the water is at a specific height, and then you arrive back with your congregants and the water is higher, that is a danger signal. And I think that that's when very, very strong leadership is incredibly important. A weak leader might want to go ahead despite the fact that they know that it's changed, that it might be dangerous or difficult. A strong leader will say, this has changed, it's dangerous, we cannot do it now, so we either adapt the ceremony or do it at a different time. So I think having a safety officer, having some form of flotation, then that could be professional lifeguards with rescue torpedo buoys, or if that's not available, the safety officer could have 5-liter plastic canisters for flotation, for example. Very important. Yeah,
really great. Thank you so much. And perhaps what you can do, Andrew, is give us, a contact or somewhere where religious leaders are able to reach out to get that kind of support if necessary.
So I think that the easiest is to go onto our website, and there's direct contact through all of our social media channels and our website, which is nsri.org.za. And we will be able to put them in contact with somebody in their area or offer advice for those areas with the great pleasure.
That's very helpful. Reverend, as we close off, your Easter message to our viewers, I think we'd appreciate that. And then, of course, your message to religious leaders as they embark on their baptisms for the long weekend.
Let me start with my colleagues first, Naledi. It is very important that my colleagues, they take baptism as an act of celebration, really, where people are coming into the community of God, into the holy space. They are becoming new beings. They are being marked for God. Baptismal is a sign of a mark of entry. So let them go and celebrate that. Most importantly, they must safeguard the lives of the people. It's their responsibility. If anyone dies there, they are responsible for that. But to all Christians and all people in South Africa who are celebrating Easter, I'm saying to them, yesterday was a Friday, today it's Saturday, tomorrow will be Sunday. And when Sunday comes, Christ will rise again and will give us a new life. And I wish everyone a blessed Easter weekend. As those who drive back home, they might drive through the grace of God. And you there, the studio Naledi and the technical team, may God showers you the blessings and the grace, protect you and your families.
We receive.
Amen.
Thank you.